statement by the President of Ukraine. Thank you very much. Dear Madam President, dear Ursula, dear ladies and gentlemen, dear journalists, every year on the 9th of May our continent celebrates Europe Day, and it is symbolic that Europe Day follows the Day of Memory and Victory over Nazism in the Second World War. Our Europe has become possible thanks to the victory over evil of aggression and ideology of hatred. Our Europe, which is based on respect to peoples and unites different nations, not by conquer, but by shared values. Our Europe has become possible exactly then when the evil of aggression has been defeated. We will always be grateful to everybody who were fighting against Nazism and won. The victory opened the historic space for the united efforts, unification efforts in Europe, and it is important that at that time it became obvious what our efforts have to be for our peace, for our joint Europe. Of course, it is best formulated in the very first sentence that opens the Schuman Declaration that are worth citing. World peace cannot be safeguarded without the making of creative efforts proportionate to the dangers which threaten it. Together, now we again are fighting against the evil of aggression and politics of hatred that modern Russia returned to our continent. So we again require victory, and we again come back to the sense of these words of Schuman Declaration. Our efforts for the sake of united Europe, for the sake of security and peace, have to be as strong as Russia's aspirations are to destroy our security, our freedom and Europe. We have to act in proportion to the threat, not weaker, in order to overcome, to win over this evil of aggression, so that the new generations of Europeans can celebrate Europe Day in peace, and not to recall that there used to be such a holiday on the continent when there was peace. And I'm grateful to our partners who are acting for the defense of Europe and freedom in proportion, in particular in proportion to the threat. I'm grateful to you, Ursula. I'm grateful to your unwavering aspiration to find strong solutions necessary for Europe. Today we have come together in particular for such strong solutions. First, defense. Second, our unification. Third, solution of the existing contradictions. As to defense, Ukraine daily demonstrates efficiency of our defense against Russian aggression. Every intercepted terrorist missile, every success of our warriors in defeating Russian attacks, these are the proofs that we can win over this aggressor. The main thing is the proportionality of our abilities to the abilities that the aggressor has. And in this context, I have thanked Ursula for the readiness of the European Union to provide Ukraine with badly needed ammunition, 1 billion artillery shells, and we have also discussed the key issues, the speed of the procurement and delivery of this ammunition, because they are needed on the battlefield already now. Also, as to the defense issues, we have touched on the issue of the sanctions against Russia for this aggression, and we count on the 11th package of sanctions to be approved in the near future, and part of it should also be sanctions against the nuclear sector of the terrorist state. Then the strength of this package will be proportional to the level of threat. Second point is our unification. Today we meet here in Kyiv, in this wonderful place, in St. Sophia, which is one of the ancient centers of European culture. Here, in everything, you feel that Ukraine has always been and will always be an integral part of our joint European space. And this, first of all, means the space of our common values, the cultural space that transforms into the relevant political and economic space. It's high time to remove artificial political opacity in the relations between Ukraine and the European Union. It is time for a positive decision to open negotiations on Ukraine's membership in the European Union. Our values, security, prosperity, peace on the continent, all of this can come true 100% for Europe only together with Europe. In this context, we count that in June, a positive interim assessment of the European Commission will be presented on the progress of Ukraine on the way to the European integration. And we do count on this. The third point of our talks today, we have discussed export of our agricultural products. We have a joint consent on the importance of Ukraine's introduction into the global food security of the world. And we have joint examples of success in the food area. In particular, it concerns such programs as our humanitarian initiative, Grain from Ukraine, and our solidarity lanes. And solidarity cannot be less than objective need for it. But unfortunately, we have faced problems in something where we should have shown strong signs of solidarity, in particular proportional to the threats that exist today, tough and even violent. Protectionist measures from our neighbors, they cannot but disappoint, softly speaking. Any restrictions of our export are absolutely unacceptable because they strengthen not everybody in Europe, but also the possibilities of and abilities of aggression. So we expect that the relevant problematic issues will be monitored and that any decisions will not be taken without consultations with Ukraine. We expect strong solutions, European in their context, and we expect that all the restrictions will be removed as soon as possible, and our talks show that there is such a will for such decisions, and we will be able to find optimal decisions that will defend the interests of Europe in general and the interests of Ukrainians that are suffering from everything, and in addition also from the export restrictions. Thank you very much, Madam President, dear Ursula. Thank you very much for your understanding. Thank you for our talks that we have already started today, and I congratulate everybody with this day, with Europe Day, and I wish the quickest possible restoration of peace and freedom for our entire Ukrainian land, for our Ukrainian European land. Glory to Ukraine.
Much. Dear President Zelenskyy, dear Volodymyr, it is an honor and it is a privilege to be here on the 9th of May. The 9th of May is a day to celebrate peace and unity in Europe, to remember the lessons of our history, and to commit to leave a better future for the next generations. So it is very fitting to be here in Kyiv to commemorate and to celebrate the 9th of May, dear Volodymyr. And let me warmly welcome your decision to make the 9th of May Europe Day in Ukraine also. Kyiv, as the capital of Ukraine, is the beating heart of today's European values. Ukraine is on the front line of the defense of everything we Europeans cherish: our liberty, our democracy, our freedom of thought and speech. Courageously, Ukraine is fighting for the ideals of Europe that we celebrate today. In Russia, Putin and his regime have destroyed these values. And now they are attempting to destroy them here in Ukraine. because they are afraid of the success you represent and the example you show. And they are afraid of your path to the European Union. But the aggressor has already dramatically failed. Ukraine has resisted the attack and is fighting back successfully. And why that? First and foremost, because as a free society, Ukraine can count on the unquenchable bravery of its million women and men. They fight for our European values. While the invaders have been dragged out of prisons and picked off the streets to be sent to the front line. In this fight, the European Union and its member states stand shoulder by shoulder with Ukraine. The 9th of May also symbolizes something else, and that is solidarity. A solidarity born out of the lessons of the great conflicts of the 20th century. That is the spirit of our democracies. And dear President Zelenskyy, I am here today to assure you that you can count on that very same solidarity for as long as it takes. We had a very good discussion. We are working on different strands, and let me report from some of them. The first priority is to help to secure the ammunition Ukraine needs. You know that we are working along 3 tracks. The fastest track is the immediate release of ammunition from member state stocks. We have allocated €1 billion to this, and it is working. Significant stocks of ammunition have been delivered or are on their way to Ukraine, but more needs to be done urgently. Therefore, the second track we agreed last week provides €1 billion from the European Peace Facility for the procurement of 155 and 152 millimeter ammunition by member states. And to accelerate this work, the third track will help the member states to ramp up the production, scale up the production, and speed up the delivery of ammunition to meet Ukraine's and the member states' needs. The second topic is financial support. We continue our vital financial support to Ukraine. You know that we have an 18 billion package for the whole year of 2023, of which we have already disbursed by now 6 billion euros. This is contributing significantly to closing Ukraine's budgetary gap. But of course, we are already working on financial support beyond 2023. The third topic has been mentioned, the sanctions. We continue to do everything in our power to erode Putin's war machine and his revenues. Our sanctions are working, and we reduced, for example, our imports from Russia by nearly 2/3, thus depriving Russia of crucial revenue streams. So we have already imposed a heavy price on the Kremlin through the 10 successive sanctions packages. Now, last Friday, the Commission adopted its proposal for the 11th sanctions package. The focus of this package is now on cracking down on circumvention. We're doing this in very close coordination with our international partners, particularly with the G7. And let me deep dive very briefly on 3 elements in this package. First, we are sharpening our existing tools. So we are adding more products to our transit ban, for example, advanced tech products or aircraft parts that are going to third countries via Russia will no longer end up in the Kremlin's hands. However, we will need to take additional action. We recently see a growth of highly unusual trade flows between the European Union and certain third countries. These goods then end up in Russia. And this is why, secondly, we are proposing a new tool to combat sanction circumvention. If we see that goods are going from the European Union to third countries and then end up in Russia, we could propose to the member states to sanction those goods' export. This tool will be a last resort, and it will be used cautiously, following a very diligent risk analysis and after approval by EU member states. But there should be no doubt that we work against sanctions circumvention. And the third element in this package is we propose to ban shadow entities from Russia and third countries who are intentionally circumventing our sanctions. So far on the 11th sanctions package, the fourth work strand we have been discussing is beyond the war. And let me touch upon the future and Ukraine's path towards membership of the European Union. The Commission clearly set out 7 steps that Ukraine needs to take before the Commission can recommend to member states to launch the accession negotiations. Ukraine is tirelessly and intensively working on these 7 steps, despite the difficulties of carrying out reforms amidst a full-blown war. So I want to pay my deep respect for this outstanding work. You know you can count on our support and our expertise throughout the whole process. Work needs to continue. So the Commission will report to the Council, indeed first orally in June, but most importantly then in writing in October. Dear President Zelenskyy, you mentioned the grain topic. This is a challenging situation and we need solutions. The immediate priority now is that the grain transit goes seamlessly and at the lowest possible cost outside from Ukraine towards the European Union. This requires a very close cooperation of the different stakeholders. Therefore, we will jointly set up a coordination platform so that we will get the solidarity lanes fully functioning. Again, this is important. Dear Volodymyr, Ukraine has been fighting for the ideals of Europe that we celebrate today, to create lasting unity and peace, to represent the values of freedom, diversity, and humanity that Europe is built on. And we should never forget that peace in Europe seemed impossible, improbable, and far too distant for much of the last century. But it was achieved, despite the pain and despite the divisions of war. As we stand here today in a country senselessly attacked, some might think it is impossible, improbable, or too distant to talk about a free and peaceful Ukraine in the European Union. But Europe is about making the impossible possible. And so is Ukraine. Slava Ukraini.
Шановні колеги, журналісти, ваші запитання, будь ласка, лише на 2 у нас.
We unfortunately will have time only for 2 questions.
Thank you very much. Madam President of the European Commission, you a bit answered already my question, but I wanted to have your advice on the progress Ukraine made to implement these 7 steps, despite the state of war.
Indeed, it is impressive to see that despite a full-blown war, Ukraine is working hard, tirelessly and intensively on the 7 steps. A lot of progress has been made, but work has to continue. So we have been discussing the details, and it is very important that we have progress, but I'm very confident because we had very good discussions on the different topics that are being addressed by these 7 steps. So our aim now is to have the oral report in June, but most importantly is then the written report that has an overview over the whole year's progress, and this will be the decision-making element presented to the member states then in October.
Дякую. Друге і останнє запитання буде від Суспільного.
Thank you very much. Second and last question from Suspilne. Hello. Mr. President, question to you. First, we see that over the previous weeks, Russia has increased the number of attacks by cruise missiles and attack drones. What is it related to, in your opinion? And the question to Madam Ursula. I understand that in the 11th package of sanctions, you will have no sanctions against Rosatom. When these sanctions will appear and in which package of sanctions we can expect them? Thank you very much for this question. After quite a long pause in terms of the attacks at the Ukrainian land, because we can recall what was happening in October and in winter, there were no less attacks. Then there was a pause in terms of the number of strikes, but they never stopped. But indeed, what we see today, increase of attacks. In my opinion, Russia needs something. The military and political leadership has to present something to their society. They don't have something to present, and we see that there is a support to some radical actions, and that's they're always happy. They were not able to sell Bakhmut to their society. They were not able to capture Bakhmut. This was the last important military operation that they wanted to complete by the 9th of May. And unfortunately, this city does not exist anymore. Everything is fully destroyed, and Russia loves Donbass so much that it has never been there. So they need some information to present it as victory. They need to conquer something, some city. So they have not managed to do that, and for the 9th of May they have to show that they have destroyed something again, but they have not managed by the 9th of May.
Question to the nuclear. We are working very intensively with our member states to diversify away, so to be independent. What that is concerned, this is hard work, but some of the member states are making progress, and you can rely on the fact that we will keep pushing our member states.
Дякую за ваші відповіді, шановні колеги. Дякую за запитання. Прес-конференція добігла кінця.
Дуже дякую.
Your questions, thank you, and we are grateful for the answers. This is the end of our press conference.